No answer comes, but I still got to ask him the question.
May I ask you where you were born and what city?
I was born in Manchester, in
Manchester.
the north of England.
Oh, really?
That explains my Lancashire accent. But up in the northwest, we resisted the Reformation, with the Henry VIII, which took hold in the southern counties and in the Midland counties. But in the north, we were always fighting against this, and we maintained the faith. And, of course, Irish blood got into the family to help the faith. Yet we've always had to struggle, not only in terms of our spiritual lives, but also in terms of our economic lives. Because Catholics, they lost everything. They lost their land. They lost their jobs. They couldn't enter the professions because you had to have a university degree to become a doctor or a lawyer. And we weren't allowed to go to universities. So my family was also poor, and any talent we had could express itself in the simplest forms, like the stage. My mother was a dancer, my father played the piano in cinemas, and this is a typical Catholic position in England. The great lawyers, the great doctors, the great prime ministers, they all come from the south, and they're all Protestants, or, as with Disraeli, they're Jews. We never had a Catholic prime minister. Had a Jewish prime minister, Disraeli.
Oh, yes, you had.
But we've always had this problem. It still goes on.
And he created an empire.
Indeed he did.
Yes,
Great
yes.
empire. He had the vision. He had
Oh,
this
yes,
vision.
he's known here. His father, even Isaac.
That's right, Isaac
yes,
Disraeli.
Isaac Disraeli.
So there are similar backgrounds in a way. I mean.
Yes, well, Mr. Singer very astutely asked the background. The background is necessary. You have to know the background.
Yeah.
Of course. Without the background, there is no right. I mean, there's no human being. We all have a background and roots, whether we like it or not. I was wondering, did they persecute your family?
Yes, we were persecuted. I say I had at least one ancestor who was executed, he was burnt actually, because he said the Queen was not head of the Church. He said the Pope is head of the Church.
So
that was it. You see. Later we had a certain amount of land in the north, and then this was taken away because we were not Protestant. You see. And if you wanted to enter politics, you had to undergo the Test Act, which meant you had to be willing to accept the Eucharist under the Anglican form. You had to take the bread and wine in the Anglican Church and say, this is not the body and blood of Christ. This is merely a symbol. And if you wouldn't do that, you were automatically a criminal. This went on for a long time, until 1829, which is not long ago.
But not in your time.
Not in my time, but in my great-grandfather's time.
Well, I'm learning something.
Good. So, yeah, that's what I mean. You are writers, and you are both fighting with the mites and so on. And I guess Mr. Burgess is a more blasphemous sort, or
really?
Would you agree?
I didn't know that. Blasphemous? I don't know.
No.
What did you say?
Maybe I don't pronounce it.
You know, you pronounce it perfectly, but I just wondering that I'm a blasphemer. Oh, I didn't know that.
I said he was a blasphemer, maybe.
It doesn't look to me like a blasphemer, but who knows how blasphemers look like?
Who knows who blasphemes? Yes, I don't know. This is a good question, but what do you mean by blasphemy? I don't know.
Let me start by, you told us once about Mr. Stravinsky. Mr. Burgess was in a film recently on the Swedish television. Stravinsky, you said something like he created a substitute of religion, namely a very severe, austere concept of art.
Yes.
So can one create a substitute of religion in that way?
Well, I think what I was saying in that program was we were talking about two great artists who were both born in 1882. So I think that we must have done this program in 1982. There was Stravinsky and James Joyce. And I think I said that Joyce was brought up a Catholic, as I was, but left it behind and had to create a substitute for the church he no longer believed in, and this was art. Art, with Joyce, is a kind of religion without God, in which there are very strict rules and a great aesthetic ideal, but God is not there anymore. He feels the absence of God, so he has to fill it in with the concept of art, which is almost religious. I think Stravinsky was pretty close to that, but Stravinsky believed in God all his life. Joyce did not. Joyce was not sure.
Can one do a substitute? Can one recreate a substitute of religion?
I would say that worldly men try very hard to make worldliness into a religion, because they speak with such enthusiasm about artists, about other people. To my parents, this looked like idolatry, and in a way it looks to me like this too. I don't think that art, really, no matter how great it is, can take the place of religion. It cannot.
Is it a question of, mankind must be helped to find the reasons for morality, for moral, for instance? Is that why?
I would say that the philosophers never really succeeded in finding a real basis for religion, and not for religion, for ethics, for morality. Spinoza tried, they all tried. Spinoza said we have to be moral. If I am going to be good to you, you will be good to me. It's kind of a pragmatic or a practical way of looking at morality. My morality, if I have any, is based on rebellion. I say to God, you have all the information, all the knowledge, all the power. I have nothing. But since I am a sufferer, and so are many of my other people, I don't want to go in your ways and be cruel in addition to the other shortcomings which I have. I don't think you can really base morality on rebellion, but it's as good a basis as any other, because the others are as flimsy as this one is.
Mm-hmm. That's very clear. That's very clear.
I'm really glad
to
talk to both of you.
That's very sound. That's very clear.
Are you comfortable, Mr.
Yes, I'm comfortable.
You are. Good.
Do you want me to go away while you talk to Mr. Singer?
No.
Stay right here.
Well, if you don't mind,
no.
I'd rather. But
why should you?
Well, I thought perhaps you'd prefer to a tete-a-tete.
No, I would tell you, I like to hear what you have to say.
I'm very glad. Thank you. That's very kind. Good. Well, we stay together.
Let's stay together.
Very good.
So let's go on about. Yes, would you add something to what Mr. Singer said?
It's very difficult. I don't think I can. You see, although our religious backgrounds are in a sense different.
It's different.
But we come to the same conclusions, which means that there must be a basis to all religions, which is fundamentally these two qualities that Mr. Singer first mentioned. Without compassion, we are nothing. I think all Christianity tried to teach was compassion. I think also rebellion. Christ was a rebel, great rebel. But we've now presented him as a kind of meek, Dustin Hoffman kind of creature. I was T.S. Eliot was right. He said, Christ the tiger. He said, in the Juvescence of the year came Christ the tiger, to be divided, eaten and drunk. But that's always been my conception, that Christ was a Jew. He was a Jewish tiger.
Sure, he was certainly Jewish.
And in 2,000 years, he's not been understood. This is, again, is what I think I can't be right about. But people don't understand, of course, because they don't want to understand. To use a technique of compassion, to learn a technique of love, is what Christ said. But nobody was willing to understand that. He said, we don't automatically love people. We don't automatically love them, but we must try and learn a technique of loving.
Do you think that they ever made an effort?
I don't think anybody. But when Christ said, right, if somebody strikes you on the street, or I hit the other, this is a game. It's a game. It's a technique. You learn tolerance through an intellectual technique. It doesn't come from the heart. It comes from the brain. And I think that's what he was trying to say, but nobody wanted to listen.
The most peculiar thing is that in the book of Psalms,